mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
We know on a miss. Schoolyard football. Fishing. Island hopping. Beach days. Fellowship at church. Sunday cricket sessions. Putting a 6 love on your friends. Kissing your granny. Jumping off the iron shore. But until them days come again, let's find different ways to embrace who we are at home. Make your own kitchen scraping band. Listen to your grandfather's sea stories. Pass on traditional recipes. Play marbles and gigs. Tell duppy stories. Pray for family and friends. Stay connected. Stay humankind. Share your ideas to inspire others. Use hashtag #StayInHomeIsKmankind. For the latest accurate information, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is humankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, at the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
Hi, I'm Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
We know on a miss. Schoolyard football. Fishing. Island hopping. Beach days. Fellowship at church. Sunday cricket sessions. Putting a 6 love on your friends. Kissing your granny. Jumping off the iron shore. But until them days come again, let's find different ways to embrace who we are at home. Make your own kitchen scraping band. Listen to your grandfather's sea stories. Pass on traditional recipes. Play marbles and gigs. Tell duppy stories. Pray for family and friends. Stay connected. Stay humankind. Share your ideas to inspire others. Use #StayingHomeIsKmankind. For the latest accurate information, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is humankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, at the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
We know on a miss. Schoolyard football. Fishing. Island hopping. Beach days. Fellowship at church. Sunday cricket sessions. Putting a 6 love on your friends. Kissing your granny. Jumping off the iron shore. But until them days come again, let's find different ways to embrace who we are at home. Make your own kitchen scraping band. Listen to your grandfather's sea stories. Pass on traditional recipes. Play marbles and gigs. Tell duppy stories. Pray for family and friends. Stay connected. Stay humankind. Share your ideas to inspire others. Use hashtag #StayInHome For the latest accurate information, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is humankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, at the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
Hi, I'm Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
We know on a miss. Schoolyard football. Fishing. Island hopping. Beach days. Fellowship at church. Sunday cricket sessions. Putting a 6 love on your friends. Kissing your granny. Jumping off the iron shore. But until them days come again, let's find different ways to embrace who we are at home. Make your own kitchen scraping band. Listen to your grandfather's sea stories. Pass on traditional recipes. Play marbles and gigs. Tell duppy stories. Pray for family and friends. Stay connected. Stay humankind. Share your ideas to inspire others. Use #StayingHomeIsKmankind. For the latest accurate information, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is humankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, at the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Donna Bush, and welcome to today's coronavirus press briefing. Glad you could join us, of course, via all of our channels, including Radio Cayman. We go now to Pastor Hyacinth Rose.
Good afternoon. I'm Hyacinth Rose, co-pastor of the Church of God Chapel in Bodden Town. Let us pray. Oh, gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we're thankful that you're here, that you listen to us, that you protect us day and night. Lord, we thank you for the plans that you have for us to succeed and not to fail. We thank you, Lord, that we can come to you and bring our needs to you. We ask for a blessing on our governor, our premier, their deputies, and all the cabinet, and all of the officials of our land, that you would watch over them, grant them prudence, wisdom, strength of purpose, and compassion. Lord, we ask that you would help to protect those who are in the healthcare industry, those who are personnel in the healthcare, and those and related fields, all who have any contribution to make to our land at this time and to our people. Protect them, Lord, in this crisis, cause that they will not fall prey to this awful disease. And we thank you, Lord. We ask you to help us to cooperate with our leaders as they're trying their best to help us, cause that we will get behind them and help them as well. Help us to live in harmony. Once again, we ask again for a complete eradication, dissipation, destruction of this COVID-19. We ask you to heal those who are sick, and we ask you to revive our economy. We ask all of these requests, knowing that you're perfectly able to grant them, because we ask them in the name of Jesus. Amen.
And thank you, Pastor Rose, for that prayer. We now welcome our panelists, His Excellency the Governor, the Honorable Premier, as well as the Honorable Minister of Health. With us in the studio today, we have the Honorable Joseph Hugh, Minister of CPI, as well as the Chief Medical Officer, the Commissioner of Police, the Director of HMCI, and our sign language interpreter. Joining us by Zoom are members of the media, as well as the Medical Officer of Health. And today we welcome Haroon Pandoyi, the Director of Planning. We go first to Dr. Lee.
Good afternoon. First, a bit of, I feel, exciting news. You may have heard on some of the British news channels that Public Health England has validated the use of the Roche platform for measuring antibodies. So we will be introducing antibody tests in the Cayman Islands in the near future. They have actually also approved the platform by Abbott as well. The Abbott system is used by the Health Services Authority, and the Roche system is used by Health City Cayman Islands. You'll hear more of that as time goes along and how we intend to use the new system of testing. I've mentioned before that the immunoglobulin G testing, which is largely what will be available through this, gives you more of a history of whether you've been infected rather than a status of the current infection. We will continue to use PCR testing as we are currently doing about the current state of an infection. The results today are that the Health Services Authority have done 486 tests and Doctors Hospital 72, so a total of 558 tests today, of which there is one positive who is a contact of a known positive case. I think my math shows that that brings the total tests in Cayman to 5,900. We have a total positive of 94 reported so far to date, 9 symptomatic, 28 asymptomatic, 2 admitted at Health City for unrelated issues, and 54 recovered. There are 59 people currently in the government isolation facilities, but that number will rise today as there is a flight which I think has probably arrived from Miami already. Persons in isolation at their residence is 104. Persons seen in the flu clinic on the previous day is 9, and there have been 27 calls to the flu hotline. That may seem like a jump, but in fact 17 of those calls were not flu related. They were people asking for their results and seeking other information not related to being unwell. So in fact there are only 10 calls relating to any symptoms whatsoever. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Lee, we're going to go first to Reshma from the Cayman Compass with any questions. Reshma, please go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. Dr. Lee, given your statement on the antibody tests, it may be helpful to share with the public why these tests would be critical in our COVID-19 fight.
I wouldn't say they were critical. I think actually the PCR testing has been the critical influencer in decision making. The immunoglobulin test, as I mentioned, is more of a history of whether somebody's been infected, and it may well be that we see that as some sort of immunity status. At the moment, we're being advised by public health agencies that this may give us immunity for a season. You're immediately going to say, what is a season? Well, they can't define that. So it is probably like the flu until the next round of infection. It's probably only that long, the period of immunity. But at least it may give us some view as to how many people in the community have been affected. And it's likely that we're going to be doing surveys to see how much the coronavirus has penetrated the community, where at the moment we just don't have that information.
Would this be helpful then in telling if Cayman had COVID-19 before the announcement of our first case?
No. Well, it's possible. The only way you might do that is if we had some banked serum. So it's frequently not the case that you would save blood tests on people to look at them historically. If you're a very big laboratory in a big country with a lot of resources and a large research portfolio, you may actually bank serum to look at stuff anonymously in the future. But we don't do that currently. The only bank that we have is our blood bank. And it is possible we could look to see if COVID was here before, as you say, before the first case that we believe to have been the first case. I think you may have seen the article that there was a case in France, I believe, where somebody actually was positive for COVID in December, long before. It could be that's what you're referring to, but long before, it started to hit the news.
Correct. Also, just a quick question on the tests. Are we still testing our residents on the sister islands, or have we finished that round of testing?
We are pouring, well, first of all, Little Cayman is 100% tested, so that's good, that's done. And we've done 400 of the 2,000 residents on Cayman Brac. We will be proceeding to do Cayman Brac more extensively, and also reviewing the tests and renewing the tests for frontline and healthcare workers. And that is something that's ongoing. But at the moment, we're pouring all our resources into trying to make sure that our decisions that we're making are the right ones, to give the information to the government about the next steps that they're going to be taking in due course.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. One final question. Following yesterday's announcement with 6 positive cases coming out of those at the government isolation facility, a question coming in from the public asking, is there any way that you would consider, say, testing people before they come on these repatriation flights, or obtaining a certificate from them saying that they're COVID-free before they're allowed back into the country?
I don't think we would do that for anybody who had legal residency here, because they need to come home. So those people will, and that is the category that are currently coming home. They are people that live and reside in Cayman, most of them being Caymanians. So that group of people, I don't see a usefulness for it, but in the future, it may be. So as we think about opening up, it's very possible that we'll think about how we might use tests in order to open up the country.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Dr. Lee.
Thank you very much, Reshma. Dr. Lee, thank you very much as well. I'd like to now call on Commissioner Byrne for his update.
Good afternoon. Just reporting in terms of the crime situation across the Cayman Islands, everything remains very stable, and the policing and security environment is operating in very calmly. The hard curfew in Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac continues to operate well. Just a moment to mention speeding. Last week I mentioned speeding as a community concern, and over the past week our roads policing and traffic enforcement unit have carried out speed detection operations across Grand Cayman, and between Monday and Thursday of this week made 148 speeding detections. Tickets were issued in the majority of cases, and 6 of the detections reached a threshold for court prosecution, with the top speed recorded at 85 miles per hour. The persons warned for prosecution are liable to disqualification from driving upon conviction. Otherwise, all is very stable and calm across the Cayman Islands. I have prepared some statistics in terms of COVID-19, hard and soft breach of regulations, and some crime statistics. But I think today the time would be better spent dealing with changes that will take place in shelter in place and hard curfew regulations, which will come into effect next week, commencing Tuesday morning, the 19th of May 2020. There will be very little change over this bank holiday weekend, save an easing in exercise restrictions this coming Sunday, the 17th of May. So if I could, just to deal with the new curfew order and to go through the legal framework. Yesterday, the 14th of May 2020, as required under the provisions of Section 49(1) of the Police Law 2017 revision, I consulted with His Excellency the Governor of the Cayman Islands and advised him of the necessity to impose a new curfew order effective 5 a.m. this morning, Friday the 15th of May 2020. My advice was predicated on the basis that it appears to me that, having regard to the immediate threat of a serious hazard on Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac in the Cayman Islands associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, that there are reasonable grounds to believe that in the interest of public safety, it is necessary to impose a new curfew order. This morning, following a meeting of the National Hazard Management Executive, followed by a meeting of Cabinet, I have now received permission from His Excellency the Governor to impose a new curfew order effective this morning, Friday the 15th of May 2020, commencing at 5 a.m, running through until 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning, the 2nd of June 2020. In effect, this imposition of curfew order will be in place for 18 days through to the 2nd of June at 5 a.m. and will be subject to the following conditions. Just to mention Little Cayman, no curfew order is in place, and the only regulations applicable are contained in SL 45 of 2020. Looking to Cayman Brac, the hard curfew remains in place each night, including Sunday, between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. through to the 2nd of June 2020. This means that only exempted essential services personnel may be on the road, outside and away from their residence during this period of hard curfew. The current regulations applicable to Cayman Brac are contained in SL 46 of 2020. And if I move then to Grand Cayman and try and break it down as best I can, soft curfew or shelter-in-place regulations contained in SL 42 of 2020, they were dated the 30th of April and came into effect on the 4th of May 2020, will remain in place until 8 p.m. On Monday next, the 18th of May 2020. Some changes on Tuesday morning, the 19th of May 2020 at 5 a.m. New shelter-in-place regulations will come into effect, which will remain in place until Monday night, the 1st of June 2020, and will have daily application between the hours of 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday. The new regulations will significantly ease existing shelter-in-place or soft curfew restrictions, and the Premier will address you shortly on the range of easing of restrictions contained in the new regulations. And in a moment, I will outline the changes in hard curfew hours and the easing of restrictions that will apply. Looking at hard curfew or full lockdown, save for exempted essential services personnel, will be in operation this coming bank holiday weekend, that is tonight through to and including bank holiday Monday, the 18th of May 2020, between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. Over this coming weekend, beach access to public beaches on Grand Cayman remains in full 24-hour lockdown or hard curfew, and this remains in place until 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning, the 19th of May 2020. Exercise periods not exceeding 90 minutes is permitted between the hours of 5:15 a.m. and 7 p.m. today, tomorrow Saturday, this coming Sunday, and bank holiday Monday. Persons are permitted to drive for the purpose of exercising. Again, I repeat, there is no beach access on Sunday. Next Tuesday, the 19th of May, will see existing hard curfew restrictions eased. New shelter-in-place regulations coming into effect next Tuesday, 19th of May 2020, will introduce the following changes to hard curfew conditions. And to deal with beach access, effective 5 a.m. next Tuesday morning, the 19th of May 2020, persons will be permitted to exercise on public beaches between the hours of 5:15 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday only, subject to the restriction that surname and alphabet range will apply A to K Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and surname range L to Z on Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Exercise periods are increased to 2 hours, and it is permitted to drive your vehicle to the beach or other location for the purposes of exercising. And to assist in understanding this easing of restriction, exercise is confined to a 2-hour period, and exercise includes swimming and fishing from the shoreline. This includes Iron Shore. Social distancing requirements apply, and persons should not congregate in groups of more than 2. No other inshore activities are permitted. No picnics or other social gatherings are permitted on public beaches. Turning to fishing, the restriction on fishing by boat has been relaxed, which means that between the hours of 5:15 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday only, use of a boat for fishing is permitted, subject to the condition that no more than 2 persons can be on a boat for the purpose of fishing. There is no inter-island travelling for fishing, and the following restrictions are in place as it relates to boats engaged in fishing. No exercise, fishing or boating is permitted at the following locations: Starfish Point, Rum Point and Sandbar. This means that a person may not anchor any boat, exercise on the beach, fish or swim, or carry out any activities in any of those mentioned areas. This does not impact persons residing beachside at those locations. This easing of curfew restrictions for boats does not include sailing boats and leisure craft, and is confined to water activity for fishing only, subject to the restrictions and exclusion zones mentioned above. In effect, hard curfew will be in place between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. nightly from the 19th of May until the 2nd of June, and this includes each Sunday evening, removing the hard curfew or full lockdown between the hours of 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. Each Sunday during the curfew period, save there will be no access to public beaches. And new shelter-in-place regulations will be gazetted later this evening. Take any questions, Donna?
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner. Do we have any questions from members of the media for the Commissioner? Just wave your hand. Okay, we have one from April at Radio Cayman.
Commissioner, I'm sorry if
Hi,
you
April.
addressed this. I just, the signal was dropping in and out a bit. You said swimming and fishing allowed. Are people allowed to walk the beach as part of their exercise, or is that off limits?
No, walking would be permitted, absolutely. I should have said that, and if I omitted that, apologies. It's obviously exercises walking along the beach, but it includes fishing and swimming.
Thank you very much, sir. That helps.
Thank you, April.
Okay, we go next to Reshma from the Compass. Reshma, please go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. Commissioner, can you say if Sunday is going to remain a hard curfew day? I may have missed it if you mentioned it.
So this Sunday, we remain, it's nighttime curfew, 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Exercise is permitted, which previously wasn't, but no beach access is permitted this or any other Sunday.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick question on the curfew cases, the curfew breaches. Can you say when those prosecutions are going to start and if it's going to be done in open court?
So Chief Justice issued a memorandum yesterday that the prosecution for hard curfew will commence next Tuesday, 5 cases per hour and possibly 25 cases per day during the week. It will be held in the town hall with strict social distancing protocols in place.
Okay, do you have an overall figure for how many cases who we're looking at?
So we have to work that out with the courts and the DPP, but to date we have made 700, or we have detected 700 breaches of soft and hard curfew. That's a mix of hard, soft and ticketing detections made. There's a lot of work going on in terms of scheduling with the courts to get these all before. So next week, as the Chief Justice has indicated, we'll start the process with hard curfew cases only. And the ticketing situation, as you know from the introduction of the regulations, there's a 28-day period and then there's a 10-day period before a summons can issue. So a 38-day period from the 15th of April applies.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all my questions for now.
Okay, we go next to Nikki Watson from CNS.
Hi, Mr. Byrne. I just have a couple of questions. When the swimming is allowed on the beach, does that include snorkeling?
I think just the common sense application would be yes, within range of shore. I don't think we could exclude that. It doesn't specifically say it in the regulations, but it would be included as part of exercising.
Okay, great. And I'm sure you said this, but I just want to clarify. This coming Sunday is a hard curfew, and Monday, the holiday, that is also a hard curfew?
No, so I just explained the hard curfew this coming Sunday and Monday will only apply night time, 8 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Okay,
Sunday restriction is moved during Sunday, but the only activity allowed or that had previously been subject of curfew is exercise is permitted this coming Sunday for a period of 90 minutes between 5:15 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Thank you very much.
Can we go now to Ralph at the Canadian Times? Ralph?
Good afternoon, Commissioner, and thank you for your report. Just two clarifications. The first one is, can a family of two or more swim together?
Social distancing protocols should take place on the beach and in the water. It is agreed that families would be there, but that's children included. The general rule and the purpose and intent is that no more than 2 adults will congregate together.
Okay. Thank you. And the second one is, I know the answer to this, but I think that a number of listeners may want you to say, if anyone is stopped by the police officers and asked where they're going, is the police officer in his right to do that?
Yes, he is, and it's contained in the regulations to ask questions to establish that it is an essential movement provided for under the regulations.
And that's it for me, Don. Thanks.
Commissioner Byrne, if you could just mention again, exercise will be allowed on what days for what persons?
Okay, so it breaks up, and I suppose this is just to break down the complexity. This weekend, very little changes. You have a period of 90 minutes between 5:15 a.m. and 7 p.m. each evening, and that includes this Sunday, which had previously been prohibited by order of curfew. So that's the relaxation this weekend. As we move through next week, effective Tuesday, which is the 19th of May, new shelter-in-place regulations come into force or come into effect, and they will be gazetted this evening. The period of exercise will be increased to a period of 2 hours, and that will include a Sunday, and the nighttime curfew will kick in then 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. each night right through until the 2nd of June. Does that answer that, Tom?
Yes, sir, it does. Another question, can you say what activities will not be allowed, i.e. paddleboarding, wave running?
So definitively no wave running, jet skis, that is absolutely prohibited, that marine activity. We're trying to interpret it as best we can. So swimming, snorkeling would seem to be reasonable. Kayaking and paddleboarding within, sight of shore would be something that I think can be accepted as exercise. I don't think we should go beyond stretching what we're trying to achieve here for intent and purpose.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our Honourable Premier for his latest update.
Thank you, Donna. Hello, everyone. I think we can all have a small moment of celebration today, because I think, again, we've reached one of those key milestones. We've tested almost 9% of our population, and yesterday being the special situation that I think we all recognize it is, that the majority, not more than majority, all but one of the positives announced were travelers or our travelers, I think we can say that our strategy is continuing to bear good fruit. And Monday coming will be 2 weeks since we imposed the last set of shelter-in-place provisions and the hard curfew. And today, obviously, the Commissioner has indicated and signaled the changes, significant changes the government has agreed to make to the current restrictions. I want to thank the Commissioner for such clarity in his presentation. I think the best evidence of that is how few questions were actually asked of him, and it has made my job that much easier to explain these changes. The exercise point and the fishing point and the beach point, we know how important all of those are. And I will just, I think, repeat them again in the event that some people may not have been listening, or in case some further clarity is required. I like to try to break things down so that, because I know most people think this way, is how does this affect my life? How does this change my life? So for this weekend, there is very little in terms of change. That is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It will be pretty much as it has been for the past 4 weeks, except that there is no hard curfew during the daylight hours on Sunday. So that any activity you could carry out during the course of the rest of the week, you can carry out during Sunday. The beaches, of course, and the shoreline remain closed, so there can be no fishing, no boating, and no access to the beaches, no swimming at all on this weekend. The relaxation in those rules do not begin until Tuesday, the 19th. So you'll be able to exercise on Sunday in the way you do during the rest of the week, because there is no alphabetical division of the population for the purposes of exercise. Similarly, with respect to the collection of food from restaurants, you can go to the restaurant, assuming it is open, and collect your food. So that is really the only significant change over the course of this weekend. But as the Commissioner has said, come Tuesday the 19th, when the new shelter-in-place regulations, which will be gazetted this afternoon, come into effect, persons will be able to access the beach for the purposes of exercise, and the Commissioner has done an excellent job, I think, in outlining what those involve: walking, running or jogging, swimming, and the Commissioner has said it will also include paddleboarding and kayaking and snorkeling, but no other activities, no picnicking, no camping, no barbecuing, no sunbathing. It is for the purposes of exercise. And the exercise requirements, limitations now extend to 2 hours of exercise in the course of a day, as opposed to the 1.5 that has been the case for the past 4 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever it is now. So I think most people will welcome the ease of these restrictions. Fishing is allowed every day except Sundays, when the beaches and shorelines will remain closed from 5:15 a.m. until 7 p.m. That I know will also be welcomed. And fishing from boats is also permitted during this period, limited to 2 persons per boat, as is the case with Cayman Brac. I think everyone will understand why there are no-go zones in terms of in-water activity or the anchoring of vessels, and that is because Stingray City, Sandbar, Starfish Point, and the Rum Point area generally is one of our major marine attractions. It is an incredibly beautiful and unique place where the water runs to 3 or 4 feet or less, and all of us, or most of us, have at one time or another spent a lot of wonderful, happy times out there on a Saturday or a Sunday in the shallow water with friends and family, listening to music, drinking, and generally carrying on. And it is that type of behavior or conduct we really are seeking to prevent or to discourage during this critical period. As I think most people know, I'm not averse to any of that kind of behavior, but it is the public health risk involved now that we are really trying to continue to prevent. And so to avoid leisure boats and people congregating in those areas, restrictions are placed on in-water activity there. So while fishermen can traverse those areas in their boats on their way somewhere else to fish, there is to be no anchoring of boats or no in-water activity in those areas. So those are 2 key points that I know have been very, very important to people. And the reason that we are able really to make these restrictions with some ease of mind are because of the results, which continue to trend in very much the right direction. And on the advice and with the guidance of the Chief Medical Officer, we are able to move now from level 4, high suppression, to level 3, moderate suppression. I want to thank the people of this country, quite frankly, for the cooperation, generally the cooperation and support that the government has received and continues to receive to the measures or for the measures that we have taken and are taking. And the many sacrifices that so many of us are making to ensure that the virus does not spread rapidly throughout the community, harming health, causing death, and wreaking even more economic damage than the shutdown necessarily has done and is doing. But I want to caution that we do need to reopen the economy slowly, as we are doing. All around us, we look countries that have rushed and are rushing the reopening on the basis that they need to rescue the economy are being forced back into shutdowns, lockdowns again, because the virus starts to take off again through the community. We are trying very hard to avoid that happening to us. Hence the reason why, despite the very, very encouraging results, we are still proceeding with considerable caution. So I think I've dealt with the social bits of the new shelter-in-place provisions that ease restrictions in those areas and make people's lives a little more bearable and enjoyable. If I can now turn to the sort of business or economic aspect of the new provisions, we will allow, the new regulations will allow, come Tuesday the 19th, the reopening of hardware stores and Home Depots, car dealerships and other businesses which sell parts and maintain and repair vehicles. Also the reopening of, that means reopening of garages, as well as boat maintenance and repair businesses, car wash businesses, construction, building and maintenance businesses, including businesses which provide engineering, plumbing and electrical, air conditioning, and similar services. So one of the most difficult bits that, let me deal with the issue of masks before I go on to deal with the more involved and difficult bits about the reopening of construction and development sector. There are provisions in the regulations dealing with the wearing of masks, which mirror the provisions that in the regulations we've made for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. And essentially, they require the wearing of masks in all enclosed public spaces where it is difficult or impossible to distance yourself the required 6 feet or 2 meters from the next person. And the regulations will permit the proprietor of the establishment to deny entry to persons who refuse to comply with the regulation to wear masks within their premises. So coming now to how we deal with construction and development. As I indicated or foreshadowed in previous press conferences this week, this has been an area that has given us a great deal of trouble to come up with an arrangement which allows the reopening of that sector to be conducted fairly, but at the same time in a way that minimizes the public health risks inherent in the reopening of a sector with more than 8,000 workers, and in situations necessarily because of the nature of the work where people come in close contact with each other unavoidably. So because there are, at last count, 1,968 entities who have trade and business licenses to operate within the construction and development sector, we understood very swiftly that if that was the starting point, we would not be able to provide the required testing to that number of persons in relatively short order. So to cut through a whole lot of other detail, we reached a situation where we, in conjunction with the director of planning, who will be available, as will the minister of planning, to answer questions following our presentations here, to identify essentially what projects were either close to completion, needing what is called final inspections only, and how many persons would be involved in getting that done, and then looking beyond that to other active projects, which are essentially projects which are already underway or were underway at the time that the lockdown was imposed. And as a result of consultation with the leads persons with respect to the first category I mentioned, which are the final inspections, we have identified, I believe, off the top of my head, 45 of those projects which will be allowed to proceed early next week because we have been able or are in the process of testing all of the personnel who would be involved, because the number is relatively small, somewhere just over 100 personnel. And of course, what this will do is once you get your final inspection and you get your sign-off, those trigger payments to the contractor. And obviously, the contractor is then in a better position to be able to pay subs. And the second category of that I just referred to involve construction projects for commercial and multifamily dwellings. We have about 65 of those different commercial and multifamily properties across Grand Cayman that are under active construction. And active means that the project has received an inspection since January this year. With these 65 projects, we anticipate up to 3,000 workers could be allowed back on the job. For this group, the project leads have also been contacted via email today and asked to submit the names of workers by project. Names should be submitted as soon as possible to the planning department in the prescribed format to allow for scheduling of the necessary tests or COVID-19 screenings. These screenings will take place on a first-come, first-served basis. Workers will be exempted by the competent authority after the testing is completed. If all goes according to plan, construction work for this second group, commercial and multifamily projects, could begin as early as next week. And the third group involves workers on single-family dwellings and duplexes. The project leads on these projects will be contacted during the week of May 25th. That is not next week, but the following, for the names of workers by project. Once again, these individuals would need to be ruled as COVID-free before they can return to work. Whilst it is estimated that the construction industry and supporting services involved is around 8,000 people, the government's strategy is to test up to 3,200 people within the next 2 weeks, starting the 18th of May. And once we have tested 40% of the construction population, and if the results allow, we then anticipate that the rest of the construction industry would commence work on the 1st of June. I should say in addition that Dr. Lee has indicated that they will continue testing even after these exercises are done, a number of field testing on a random basis to ensure that we continue to have the best possible readout on what the virus is doing or hopefully not doing in the broader community. And as I indicated at some of the earlier press briefings this week, Public Health will also be carrying out inspections without notice on projects that are restarted to ensure that the proper protocols are being observed, the wearing of masks, the distancing insofar that that is possible between persons who are working, and that there are adequate sanitation facilities to allow for the frequent washing of hands and the like, and that this is a particular concern with this particular sector, that the transportation of employees is being done in as careful and thoughtful and safe a manner as the circumstances will allow. I should say that conveniently leads me to mention the issue of public transport and the new provisions, the new regulations which come into effect on Tuesday the 19th make special provision for public transport. Essentially, all public transport vehicles will be required to operate at no more than 50% carrying capacity, and that all persons contained within the vehicle must wear masks at all times while they are within the vehicle. Just checking my notes to see that I have covered everything that I need to. Yes, I think that I have covered just about everything that these new shelter provisions change with respect to life as we have come to know it. I do hope and I expect that they will be welcome. This easing of restrictions will be welcome broadly across the community. And please understand that the government is moving as quickly as we think is safe to try to bring back some sense of normalcy to life and to get the economic engine of the country moving again. We are keenly and deeply conscious of the economic damage that the shutdown has caused and is causing to businesses. Believe you me, government revenue itself has fallen off precipitously, almost by 50% in the past month. So we are keenly conscious of what is transpiring, but the public health issue and the safety and welfare and health of the nation still remains paramount. As I've said before, dead people don't make good customers or clients, and sick people don't make good workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier McLaughlin. Your Excellency.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And I agree. I think this is a hugely important moment for us on the islands as we look to open the economy and we make some relaxation to some of the measures that socially we've all been living under. I first just want to welcome very much the test results today. That's a huge number of test results, well over 500, and I think that means we're now approaching 6,000 tests, which is almost 10% of our population. And in terms of the global league for testing, we are up to 10th now in terms of the number of tests per head of population. So again, I think huge thanks to everybody involved in our testing process. And like Dr. Lee, I'm also very excited by the news of the immunity tests, the antibody tests that he mentioned, because although there is still some doubt about the science surrounding those and how long such immunity could last, this could be a very important additional tool in our armoury for tackling this very dangerous virus. So I think it is really welcome today that we can move to suppression level 3, and I know that the opening up of the beaches, the ending of the Sunday hard lockdown, and many of the other measures around opening up the economy will be welcomed. And like the Premier, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody out there for getting us into this position, because it's thanks to all of you cooperating that we're able to announce these changes today. And again, we do know that we've asked an awful lot of you, but we are very grateful for your cooperation. I want to make an announcement on evacuation flights today, a very welcome step forward in that we have been able to arrange a British Airways flight to go to Manila in the Philippines. We have the agreement of the Philippines authorities for that, and this flight will depart from the Cayman Islands on Saturday, the 23rd of May, so next weekend. This flight will not bring anybody into our islands. It will be an evacuation flight for Philippine nationals who wish to return to Manila. The cost of the ticket will be $1,850 and the flight will go via London, but nobody will be able to get off in London. This is for people going back to the Philippines. Seats will be on sale from tomorrow. If you have registered with the travel helpline, you will be sent details of how to book tomorrow. So please do not call or email the travel helpline as they will not have any further information today. So this is an emergency evacuation flight, and we predict it will be full because of the people who've already been in touch with us. And we will be encouraging all passengers to wear masks. So as I've said, there'll be nobody coming in from outside on this flight, largely because our isolation facilities are at capacity at the moment. I'm also pleased to announce that my office is in discussion about a separate airbridge flight to London Heathrow, and details will be announced on that soon. This is likely to be in the early part of June. We are also looking at additional British Airways airbridge flights for June, July and August, particularly August, when I know that a lot of people have students who need to go to school or university, and we're in touch with a large group of people who wish to go on such a flight. And we remain in contact with the Indian authorities about a flight there, and details will be shared just as soon as they become available. There are no more planned flights to US destinations at present, but we do expect to be organising flights to Miami but we will not be organising flights to other destinations in the US. We would encourage people to go to Miami and then go on under their own steam from Miami. And then finally today, my shout out is to the Civil Service redeployment team, headed by Acting Deputy Chief Officer Lauren Knight, well supported by Joanna Bond, Karen Ford and Lisa Gager. So this team has been responsible for managing the redeployment process in the civil service, gathering information on 2,850 civil servants to determine who could be available for redeployment to support other tasks, other COVID-19 tasks. And they've successfully redeployed staff from the Internal Audit Service to assist with the soft loans programme. They've helped our curfew time team, and they've sent lots of volunteers to assist with the management of the isolation facilities. And I think this is yet another example of how the civil service has really stepped up in this crisis to help everyone on our islands. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Minister of Health.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, everyone. Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, Little Cayman, and our Caymanian diaspora listening in. As you've heard, the Premier in his announcement and what measures has been freed up or relaxed. Please take this time to think about how you manage what is available to you. We are not by any means out of the woodwork. And as I've said, there are those that just want this to go away and criticize that there wasn't even a coronavirus and it's all a hoax. Well, I say to you, just look at New York and Italy and the amount of deaths worldwide and decide for yourself. Scripture reading for today is Galatians 6. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by spirit should restore that person gently, but watch yourselves, or you may be also tempted. Carry each other's burden, and in this way fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are someone when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all the good things with their instructor. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from their flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good. For all the proper time, we reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. May God add a blessing to the reading of his holy word. I want to note that this Sunday, May 17th, Williams Production in association with Radio Cayman are pleased to bring you a broadcast of the Crab Family Concert held at the Lions Center 2018. Performing is our very own local singers, Rico Rolando, William White, Jaden Hanna. Relive the memories of a special tribute broadcast in honor of all of our essential frontline heroes working to keep our island safe. Join Radio Cayman and Cayman Life TV Channel 33 from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Also CIG TV from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Also want to shout out happy birthday to Ayanti and Charlene L. As I've mentioned recently, over the past couple of weeks, the flu clinic at the HSA has steadily seen a decrease in numbers, which is very good. It's a reflection that the incidence of flu-related illnesses are diminished. Therefore, starting this weekend, the HSC will be reducing the hours of the flu clinic on Grand Cayman. The clinic will be open on Saturdays and Sundays between the hour of 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. During the week, the hours of this clinic will remain the same for 8 a.m., 4 p.m. Faith Hospital will also continue their flu clinic Monday to Friday as they have been. I continue to be impressed by the responsiveness of this business community to support the healthcare sector in this crucial time as we confront this global health emergency. In this regard, I'd like to make special mention of the Caring for Life Foundation for their recent donation to the HSA for the purchase of vital life-saving medical equipment for the care of patients with COVID-19. The foundation's donation of $50,000 expands the capacity of the HSA to care for more ventilated patients and those requiring critical care services if necessary. The Caring for Life Foundation is a community-driven charity that raises funds to purchase equipment and supplies for our healthcare system. Over the years, they have made many contributions to help better the lives and the medical outcomes of those who need it most. Thank you to the directors of the foundation for this generous donation, Caring for Life Foundation. I would also like to speak today to the community-based distribution of reusable cloth masks. Currently, an initiative is underway to provide reusable cloth masks to all members of the community within the Cayman Islands via one of the clusters in the National Emergency Operations Center. 100,000 reusable cloth masks have been procured, 50,000 from a supplier in Jamaica, and 50,000 from Haynes, a company in the USA. I wish to thank the DART group for their assistance in helping us to procure the masks from Haynes. The police and community support officers of the RCIP, under the leadership of the Inspector Miles, commenced distribution of the masks door to door across all 3 islands earlier this week, and by the end of yesterday, a total of 2,735 masks had been distributed, 600 in the sister islands and 2,135 in Grand Cayman. Distribution will continue until all households in all 3 islands have been supplied with masks. Flyers with instructions for the care and proper use of the masks are also being provided to ensure maximum effectiveness. These masks have also been provided to frontline essential service personnel with many public safety and other customer-facing agencies, including the police, prison, border control, airport authority, and water authority. They will also be included in the return to work PPE kits for all government entities, including SAGs, in preparation for phased reactivation. To ensure access to supermarkets, as of today, police officers are on site at all locations and will have a limited supply of disposable masks to give anyone who comes out without one. This can be done immediately. And the reusable cloth masks, they are provided at all the same time. It can be utilized after they have been washed, per the instructions on the accompanying flyer. Positive feedback has already been received from persons across the islands who received their masks within the last few days, and officers will continue their door-to-door visits over the long weekend to take advantage of the fact that more people will be at home. Additionally, all MLAs were supplied with additional disposable masks on Wednesday of this week for distribution within their constituencies. These initiatives are but another measure being taken to ensure the health and wellness of all persons. I must emphasize that in addition to wearing a mask, you must continue to practice good hand hygiene, proper respiratory etiquette, and adhere to the prescribed minimum social distance requirement. Many thanks to all involved in these distributions initiatives. Keep safe, everyone. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Fell. Member McLaughlin.
Thank you, Donna. If I might just come back on to address a couple or 3 issues really that I didn't address at all, and others that people are questioning me about because it might limit the number of other questions that I get. So one of the points is about exercise and driving to exercise and exercise on the beaches. So starting on Tuesday, people will once again be able to drive to whatever point they go to do their exercise. And going to the beach to exercise, of course, is allowed now, but only on your assigned letter day. And so that people understand the thinking behind this, it's not because we want to be mean. It is because we are trying to limit the number of people on the beach at any given time. By using the assigned letter day, as it's come to be known, it means we divide the population in two. The potential number of people on the beach at any given time is therefore halved. And so the alphabetical division of the population will be used for access to the beach. The other point I need to make so that I can explain, because I can understand why people get frustrated by this. Why does it have to be limited to 2 persons per boat? We've done the same thing in Cayman Brac. So I have a family of 3, a family of 4. It's me and my 2 sons. Why can't the 3 of us go or the 4 of us go at once? Very reasonable question. It is simply because the police do not have the wherewithal to stop and check every boat that has more than 2 persons to see whether they are members of the same household or not. They need to be able to discern very swiftly, is it 2 people only or is it 3? And if it's 3, then it's over the limit. They do not have the bandwidth, the capacity to be able to police this in a way. I just ask everyone to see with us, as we say in these parts. If all goes well, this is only for another 2 weeks or so. So help us to keep progress going so that we can get back to normal, where it doesn't matter how many people you have in your boat as long as you comply with the marine regulations. The other point I want to make, which I didn't make at all, was about the regulations now allow access by people within a strata to their pools and to their tennis courts. But this physical distancing requirements are still in force. So if you are not a member of the same household, if you're not members of the same household, congregation in the pool or on the tennis court is limited to 2 persons. But if it's a family or if it is a group from the same household, because people are not always family that live in a household, that's another complication. But it's 3 of you, you can go to the pool together, but only 1 other person may be there interacting with you at any given time. So this is all very awkward, we understand. But again, I pray patience for all going well. It's just another 2 weeks of this sort of limitation.
Thank you, Premier McLaughlin. That leads me to my first question from the public. I believe Commissioner Byrne might be able to answer this as it relates to the beaches and transportation. There are people already saying, oh, there are going to be people out there who are going to try to take advantage of this. How will you be able to, how will you and your officers be able to manage these changes?
Yeah, that's a key question, I suppose. And a lot of it boils down to social responsibility. The premise is that people will understand the regulations, understand the intent and purpose, and comply with the regulations. The police officers will be out, and we will be asking for identification to ensure that it is your assigned alphabet range date. And I think that's as much as I can say at the moment. We're hoping that people will comply with the regulations, understand, as the Premier has outlined, why they're introduced, apply social responsibility. We're trying to protect communities, save lives, understand what it's all about, and a couple of weeks' time, move towards getting back to normal, I think.
Okay. I do have another question for you, Commissioner Byrne. Are your officers and security officers at the banks allowed to ask persons to remove their masks?
Okay, so I haven't come across that one. Security officer wouldn't have any powers. The police officers have powers under the regulations to question persons, to establish the legitimacy of their business, to ensure that it's on a proper letter day, and to the test for removing the mask would be, can I hear you, can I interpret you? So it's not a case of just removing your mask. It must be removing for a particular reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do have a question for you, Your Excellency.
Donna, just to pick up on that point.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, that's fine. Is that the regulations actually provide, and I mentioned it, that in terms of the security officer working for the bank or for the supermarket, if the person does not wear a mask, they can prevent them from entering the facility.
Yes. Okay.
But I don't know that they can force them to take it off unless they.
Yeah, but the banks are, security officers at the banks are doing it. They're asking people to, just for a second, just like they can get a view of their faces before they go into banks. So it's happening. Right? Thank you very much. Minister?
I want to say that, and Dr. Lee could probably chime in here, in terms of what is the reason why people would fear taking off their mask for 2 seconds just to match their ID, and what dangers would that cause? It would be good if you could chime in on that, Dr. Lee.
Thank you for the opportunity. I think I've received a similar query as well, which I thought it would so it's great to hear what the Commissioner says. My understanding is that people are being asked to take off their masks and perhaps leave them off for the duration of their visit in the bank in order that the bank's cameras can pick up their faces, which I wouldn't have thought, I don't think is acceptable under the regulations. They would need to put the masks back on, and I can see the Commissioner nodding at me here. So I understand for brief recognition, but that would be the limit of that, because we wish people to wear masks in enclosed places, and that would include banks, in order to protect from any potential of spread from one person to another. If I may, now that I've got the stand, also just to add something.
Sure.
I need to correct my earlier announcement. I understand that the 2 people who were inpatients at the Health City have now been discharged, so that's great news. There are no inpatients in Cayman who have COVID, even though those people weren't suffering with COVID itself. So.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you very much for that. I do have a few more questions before we move to the rest of the media for the panel. Your Excellency,
Yes.
any updates on flights to Jamaica? Any updates and discussions there?
There are discussions going on, but I have no more information to be able to give on that today.
Okay. Premier McLaughlin, all those persons who are now being released back into the workforce in construction and other areas, do those companies now have to follow suit with the other industries that were open and write curfew time to make sure that their persons or their staff are seen as essential or exempted workers?
Yes, that process is still very much the same. The address is www.exploregov.ky/curfew time. It's a website, not an email address anymore. But yes, the way the process works is so the regulations can declare a certain type of business activity exempt from the shelter-in-place provisions. Or curfew time can, in accordance with government policy, also designate outside the need for cabinet to do so a certain category of business or a certain business to be exempt. But in order for the police to know who is on the road for the essential purpose, they need some evidence. Hence, the practice required that the proprietor, the manager, the CEO, whatever, write to the competent authority and say, John Brown and Mary Ebanks are essential workers for my business, which has been exempted. Would you please provide me with the appropriate letter? And then you get the letter. So all that happens is you get one letter that covers everybody.
Right.
And then the business person, the HR person, whoever it is, writes a letter saying, Mary Ebanks works for my company, which has been declared exempted, and I need them to be on the road so they can come to work, deliver, whatever the case may be. It's worked very, very well over the course of the last 6-7 weeks. So there's just going to be a lot more of them on the road now than it was before.
Yes, sir. There are some companies who were recently granted permission to do deliveries, who may now are very much involved in the construction industry as well. Do they then have to rewrite to curfew time as well, now that they're going to be delivering other services?
No.
Okay. Once they've been given permission to conduct delivery, what about if those persons would need to go to the companies? Then that's...
Well, the list of, or the category of businesses that I just described are the new ones that have been added to this list. So yes, they will all have to go now and get letters for their folk. Or if the scope of what they are allowed to do has been extended, which is the case, for instance, with respect to the Home Depots, who have been allowed to do deliveries and curbside pickup, people will now be able to go inside the store.
Okay. That leads me to a question about another large industry, which are the beauty salons. Mm-hmm. They're small businesses mostly, and for the most part, and they're crying out as to when they're going to be considered to,
right,
be open.
Lord knows I would like to. I would like them to be open too. This is the longest my hair has been in many, many years. But this is one of the most dangerous areas because of the need for very, very close contact. It's impossible to cut someone's hair from 6 feet away. So we really need, and this is the advice we're receiving, we really need to be more confident than we currently are before we can actually reopen that aspect. We need, what that means is we need the results of more tests. So, but I would hope that in a few weeks, and I don't mean months either, I mean in a few weeks, at the rate we're going, in another couple of weeks, we should have close to 10,000 test results. And depending what they say, we will then consider whether or not we think that that is a manageable risk.
Okay.
But it is a most essential service. The governor has abilities that I don't have. He can cut his own hair. Badly. So does the Minister of Health, but I haven't been brave enough to try it. I think I'll have to take it all off. I think I'm going to probably have to wear a cap to press briefings in the next few weeks if it keeps on like this.
Okay, what about pest control companies?
Yes, they're exempted as well.
Okay. Gas stations, will they be able to open on Sundays?
Yes.
Okay. All righty, I think that's it for me for questions.
That's good.
I know there are lots of other questions, however. I'm just, trying to give my...
I'm sure there are no more questions after all of that.
We're going to go first to, I believe, let's go to Reshma over at the Cayman Compass. Reshma?
Thank you, Donna. My first question, and lots of questions keep coming in for these new changes. A point of clarification, Premier, do all construction workers need to be tested before they're back out to work?
No, but all construction workers are not going back to work immediately. It is only those for the projects that have active status, and they are all it's being dealt with project by project, so that what they're considering is all of the workers that are necessary for a project. And in the case of the small companies, all of their personnel will be tested before they're allowed back on. And in the case of the companies that have bigger numbers, somewhere around 25% of their personnel will actually be tested. But it is hoped that we would have tested around 3,200 of them by the time we get to the end of the month.
Okay, thank you. Still on the clarifications. Now, you talked about the beach access, which begins on Tuesday, will only be through the alphabet system. Sunday is not an alphabet day. What's the plan for Sunday when it comes to beach access?
That's the reason why there's no beach access or access to the shoreline on Sunday, because we couldn't figure out how to be fair on Sunday.
Okay. All right, great, thanks. Now, in terms of repatriation flights that were announced. This maybe you can answer, or the governor can answer. In a previous press conference, we had talked about the recovery fund being used to assist those who may need help getting out of the country. Is that still the case, or is government contemplating releasing the repatriation fee or work permit fees back to, say, small businesses? Because we've had comments come in from them asking for that kind of assistance to help get workers that they can't keep anymore get home.
Well, what I would say is if there are companies in that position, then they should let us know through the Department of Labor and Pensions or through work, so that we know how to manage the situation. I'm not going to sit here and create a free-for-all by saying that government is going to repatriate anyone who wants to go home.
But I could just add to that, just from my own discussions with some of the private sector individuals involved in the fund, that I think that is something that they are willing to look at as well as that fund gets up and running. So there are non-government possibilities here as well, I think.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, there's a particular situation that was brought to my attention in relation to school bus operators and problems with payments. A couple of employees reached out and said, in particular from one of the bus companies, that they have not been paid, and they were told that government has not released funds in order for them to pay their employees. I don't know if this is something you can address or investigate, Premier.
Well, let me just explain the situation. So we're talking about school buses now. So a number of companies have contracts to transport school children on behalf of the Cayman Islands government. Government pays the contractor for the provision of certain services. Government does not have direct responsibility for employees of those contractors. The persons that you are speaking about not being paid are employees of the bus transportation companies, or I know of one company in particular that has not paid its staff. I know of other companies that have paid their staff. The difficulty that government has had, the Ministry of Education has had, which we are sorting through, I'm happy to say, because we understand everybody's in a difficult time and in crisis, is that government financial regulations do not allow government to pay for services which it is not receiving. And no services, or very limited services, I put it that way, because some of or at least one of the bus companies has been contracted by government to move people who have returned to Cayman from the airport to the isolation facilities. But certainly that was not really within the contemplation of the contract to carry school children. So because they are not providing the service, no fault of theirs, but because they are not providing this service, there is not a basis for government to pay the contractor. And the people who handle this, the CFOs and those, are very mindful of what the financial regulations permit and don't permit. So they have been in the process of developing a workaround which would be acceptable to the Auditor General to allow payment to the bus contractors, even though they are not providing the service. But they're not providing the service. It's not their fault they're not providing the service. It's the circumstances. So I've spoken to the Deputy Governor today about it, and he says he's satisfied that an appropriate workaround has been found, and we hope in the course of next week that we'll be able to pay the bus contractors. But the bus contractors have an obligation to their staff, regardless of whether they get paid or not, because the employment contract is not between the bus warden and the government, but between the bus warden and the bus transportation contractor. But as I say, we're all very sympathetic to what's going on. But as I say, I know most of the bus companies have understood that their obligation is to their employees, and they've taken the hit and have paid their employees while trying to get this sorted with government. But some haven't, obviously.
Thank you for that, Premier. My final question is in relation to the mandatory masks now in public spaces. For those who may have problems wearing the masks, is there any avenue open to them? Any sort of medical clearance that they would require that would give them that exemption to, say, go into public spaces without wearing a mask? Is that provided for in the regulations at all?
Yes, it is.
Include.
Okay, so what does that entail then?
Just as you said, a medical evidence, a certificate, a letter, or something from a medical practitioner that says that that they're not able to wear a mask.
Okay, great.
And it's not to be corrected, but I think what needs to be clarified is that if you're not within a public building, inside a building, and you're not within 6 feet of someone, you don't have to wear a mask in the open.
Reshma, did you get that?
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. That's my questions for today.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go now back to Nikki Watson from CNS.
Yes, hello. While we're talking about masks, a lot of people are still saying that they have not heard from their MLA and they don't know how to get into contact with them. So would it be possible to just post the MLA's contact details on the coronavirus website or something so people know how to contact them?
I can work on from my end, and but I know they're personally all got. Plus, I read out earlier that the many other methods that we're using. The police are coming door to door, and that effort also in the Red Cross, and most persons should know where their district MLA office is. They should all have an office somewhere in their constituency. If they don't, then I make a plea for them to make themselves available and post their numbers so that their constituents can reach them.
Okay, thank you for that. And while I've got the health minister, at what point are you thinking of opening up the hospital and the doctor's office and the dentist so that people can go for non-emergency or critical appointments? How far down the road is that?
I would hate to guess. Is Dr. Williams on here?
Yes, he is. Or Dr. Lee, can you address the question, Dr. Lee?
Yeah, thanks for the question.
I'm assuming it's not in the regulations currently because I haven't actually seen them.
No.
Okay. So the decision about, as you know, as many of you will know, you are entitled, you're absolutely free to attend your practitioner, whether it be a GP or a hospital specialist, for an urgent issue, and that has been described as something that is time sensitive or that needs attention, often because it's giving pain or there are symptoms or bleeding that need investigation and so on. So that can go on now. And certainly telemedicine, of course, is available for some of the more routine efforts, reasons. But clearly there are times when you'll need to actually see face-to-face a doctor, they'll need to examine you and so on, and it may not be an urgent issue. The Health Practice Commission has been the body that's been advising practitioners on what to do and when to do it, and they're keenly aware that people need to get back to see their doctors, and it's being reassessed by the HPC all the time. I would imagine that at the next level it's likely there'll be a change again. I can't promise anything. That's obviously always going to be a government decision alongside the HPC, but I would have thought it would probably be at the next level.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions, I think, for the Premier now. They're just quick ones, nothing difficult. You talked about the strata, so people can, and under the conditions that they can use the pool and the tennis courts, but what about the playgrounds? Will kids be allowed to use the playgrounds in the strata, and can they play with their friends in the strata?
I should bring up Dr. Lee to answer this, because he'll do so very much more effectively than me, but the answer is no.
Can you say no any better, John?
He is absolutely terrified of that prospect. And the reason, he gives us lectures every day, so that's how I know these things, is that children are, unfortunately, the biggest single, as a group, the biggest single vector of the disease. They are generally asymptomatic. Children find it naturally very difficult to socially distance, and therefore they transmit the disease very, very effectively. And hence the need to keep playgrounds closed. And indeed, I addressed the question about early childhood facilities, learning centers. Again, those will be among the last things that are released from restriction.
Okay, and one more. The hardware shops are open now, but what about office supply and bookshops?
They are still subject to delivery and curbside collection for the time being. The only places that have been opened up as facilities where people can actually walk in are those that have been deemed to be big enough and have the ability to put in place the distancing protocols around the way people operate in there. That's the rationale for limiting it essentially to the big places, A.L. Thompson's, Kirkholme Center, Uncle Bill's, Cox, those sorts of places that are big enough that can effectively manage the protocols.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikki. We do have a few questions for Minister Hugh. We're going to go first to April Cummings from Radio Cayman. April, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Minister Hugh, you recently announced the package of support and services for some of the business community. What kind of response have you gotten? And how is that all working in terms of people applying for and receiving benefits?
Thank you, April, and good afternoon to everyone. If you give me 2 seconds, I will give you an update as of Wednesday afternoon. So we have 2 programs. As you mentioned, we have the loan program in association with the Cayman Islands Development Bank, and then we have the grants program. On the grants program, we received 219 applications as of Wednesday evening. We have processed 205 of those applications. 129 have been submitted to be paid. 53 further applications were submitted today for payment, and 14 were not qualified. On the loans, we received 32 loan applications. We have reviewed 32 and have submitted 21 to the Cayman Islands Development Bank for the final credit checks and processing.
Thank you. That helps with the numbers. What is your sort of sense in terms of the feedback and response you're getting about what's being provided? Are they happy about it? Do they need more? Just trying to get your take on what's happening in that sort of the medium and small business community and micro businesses.
We had a very, very strong response of interest at the beginning. However, we noticed that interest curtailed once we announced the pensions opportunity. So I think a lot of persons have decided to take the route of focusing on accessing their pensions. We also had one of the hurdles we face is the inability to have face-to-face meetings and to physically assist persons with the application process. So it has taken a little longer and a little more frustrating to do so via the telephone or via email where we cannot video conference. Another hurdle that we overcame this week was that there were a few applications or persons who had interests that were not licensed by the Trade and Business Licensing Board, but under other laws, or who had exemptions from being licensed under the Trade and Business License Board, such as cottage industry businesses. And so I issued a directive on Monday that all of those businesses would qualify for the grants application. So we are trying to make it as streamless and as easy as possible for persons to complete the application process. And we are now finding our rhythm and have worked out all the kinks with getting out the payments, et cetera. So we'll continue to work along those lines.
One more thing, are you finding people taking advantage of the opportunity for some of the other aspects, not just grants or loans, but help in reframing their businesses under, it was one of the things we talked about is that not all businesses really have a place right now. Have you had much success with folks working through the process of redefining their businesses or reshaping how they operate?
Yeah, we have had a lot of feedback in that area, and we've had quite a tremendous response and participation. Each one of the webinars have had well over 250 persons participating in our webinars. They've been very well received and are going very well. And so I would actually like to take the opportunity to congratulate and thank the team down at the Cayman Islands Business Development Center for the hard work. They have been working some extra long hours answering the phones, assisting people with their applications, while at the same time facilitating these webinars and training seminars.
Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
You're welcome.
Okay, Minister Hugh, we're going to go now to Reshma from the Cayman Compass. She has some questions for you.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, Minister Hugh. Just a quick question on the NRA program and the roadworks. They announced that this week. Can you give us an update on how it has been going? And also with more workers heading out, more construction, with construction restarting, how are you going to manage the roadworks versus more cars, more people back out on the road?
Yeah, we had hoped to get a little bit ahead of that. But it took a while for us to get the testing done on our crews. And of course, it's not just the NRA crews that needed to be tested, but also the island paving crews. So we are up and going. The guys are moving as quickly as they can. We have a few days before more of the industries open up and the traffic gets a bit harder. I anticipate that if necessary, we will have to take advantage of the hard curfew time in some of the busier intersections. Shedden Road, North Sound Road, those streets we've been trying to upgrade for quite a while now. But with the traffic congestion that we had been experiencing over the last few months, it was never a perfect time. So we're focusing on those now, and perhaps we will have to appeal to the competent authorities to do those during the hard curfew time when there's no traffic.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I needed.
Okay, thank you, Minister Hugh. Thank you, Reshma, for that. I have a few more questions as it relates to those who conduct home repairs, persons who conduct home repairs? I believe that you had mentioned that those smaller companies that do that sort of work would come online later, but could you clarify that for us?
Right. So at the moment, home repairs, which are emergencies, there are exemptions for people to go and do that, but not a general exemption for persons to do, sort of general home repairs at this stage. They'll come online, I think, fairly swiftly, within a couple of weeks. But currently, is the categories that I went through in some detail at the beginning, for a number of reasons. But the principal one is that we want it to be safe, and we want to make sure that the people who are coming into your home are unlikely to be bringing the virus with them.
Also, new moms-to-be, baby shops, anything further for them?
Well, you're testing my memory now, but I think we exempted baby shops some long time ago now.
They've been open.
So they're fully open, or it's just for delivery services?
I can't recall. I don't like to make mistakes if I can avoid them. So
Sure. No worries.
But we'll be back again before long.
Okay. Any further comments from our panel today before we?
I've just had a note from the Postmaster General. This is a question that keeps getting asked. So if you don't mind, I'll just read it. The Postal Service began testing outgoing international mail this week. We are still awaiting confirmation of 2 final steps of the process before we satisfy ourselves that this will work to serve our customers going forward. As such, we expect to be able to make an official announcement next week as to the lifting of the formal suspension and advise customers what will be possible and what will not at this time. Many countries still have their own borders officially closed. As relates to incoming international mail service, on 1st of May 2020, the Postal Service advised all our international partners how to resume sending their mail to Cayman, as it's the sending country's responsibility to get the mail here. We continue to keep our key partners informed, the United States, Canada, and the UK, as to incoming mail options as they may happen. And these countries are well aware that their citizens here in Cayman are eagerly awaiting items that have been posted but are still in the country of origin. The Postal Service in Cayman is simply waiting until these countries can resume getting their mail to us again.
Thank you very much.
Hope that helps.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder about the concert that the Minister of Health mentioned earlier, the Crab family in Cayman in honor of essential frontline heroes. Again, the live broadcast will take place this Sunday, May the 17th. You can watch it here on CIG TV from 5:30 in the evening till 7:30, or you can listen in on Radio Cayman at 7 p.m. to 9, or watch it on Cayman Live TV, channel 33 on Logic from 7 to 9 p.m. as well, as you can go on Cayman Live TV's Facebook page. Again, that is this Sunday. Before we go, of course, a reminder to go online to gov.ky/coronavirus, to the FAQ section if there's a question that you may have that hasn't been answered as yet. We'd like to thank you, the public, for joining us, of course, to our all-important members of the panel and those joining us here in the room and via Zoom. We invite you to join us here again on Tuesday. Have a great holiday weekend. And for those watching, we leave you now with a look at today's regional and world statistics.